Good early afternoon. It is Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. I'm JJ Hastings, and here's the news you're going to actually be talking about today. Now, going back to a story I covered last week, we have a major update on the ground in Baghdad. American journalist Shelley Kittleson, who was abducted off the street by an Iranian-backed militia a week ago, is being released this morning. Now, the group Kataib Hezbollah announced the release on Telegram, but comes with the chilling condition that she must leave Iraq immediately. Now, this matters because it highlights the extreme danger for specifically female journalists in the region right now. The U.S. government had previously warned of specific threats by this paramilitary group to kidnap or kill women in the press. While it is a relief that she's out, the fact that a militia can snatch an American journalist and then dictate the terms of her expulsion show just how little control the Iraqi central government has over its own capital during this conflict. This isn't just about one journalist, it's about the total collapse of safe zones for information. If the people reporting the news on the ground can be kidnapped and exiled at will by militias, the ground truth we get from the Middle East is going to become even more filtered and dangerous to obtain. In our second story, we're seeing a major escalation in the humanitarian risk on the ground in Iran this morning. India's Ministry of External Affairs has just issued an urgent 48-hour stay-in-place order for all of its Indian nationals currently in Iran. This isn't just a standard travel warning. The Indian embassy in Tehran is telling its citizens to avoid the upper floors of multi-story buildings and to stay strictly away from any electrical or military infrastructure. Now, currently, there are an estimated 7,200 Indian nationals still in the country, including nearly 1,000 students. The Indian government has already facilitated the evacuation of about 1,800 people through both Armenia and Azerbaijan, but for those who couldn't get out before the airspace disruptions, the instructions are clear. Do not move. They're being told to coordinate any essential highway movement directly with embassy teams, as the risk of collateral damage from a potential strike tonight is considered extreme. Why should you care? Well, when a neutral global power like India tells its citizens to hide in the basement and stay away from power lines, it tells you exactly what kind of intelligence they are seeing regarding the U.S. strike list. They aren't just worried about military targets. They are preparing for a total infrastructure blackout that could turn high-rise buildings and city centers into death traps. Now, in the Pacific, Japan is moving forward with a massive shift in its post-war pacifist policy, and we now have the domestic details beyond just the rhetoric. Now, according to a draft government plan obtained by Kyodo News and reported by the Straits Times, the Takaichi administration is preparing to scrap the current rules that limit arms exports to non-combat carries like surveillance and rescue. The new policy, expected to be endorsed by the cabinet later this month, would allow for the export of lethal equipment, including destroyers and missiles, to countries that have signed specific security agreements with Japan. While the plan claims exports to active conflict zones are prohibited in principle, it includes a massive loophole for special circumstances tied to Japan's own security needs. Now, opposition parties in Tokyo are already holding rallies, arguing that bypassing parliamentary approval for these sales fuels a regional arms race. Japan has been the sleeping giant of the Pacific for over 80 years. By moving to become a global arms dealer, they are signaling that they no longer trust the U.S. to be the sole guarantor of security in the region. This adds a massive newly armed player to the board at a time when China is already at a hair trigger over U.S. involvement in the Middle East. It is a fundamental redraw of the map that will affect Pacific stability for decades. And in our final segment this morning, we have a major update on the president's rhetoric as we hit the final countdown to that 8 p.m. deadline. Just a few hours ago, the president posted a series of statements on Truth Social that have shifted the conversation from targeting infrastructure to threatening the total annihilation of the Iranian state. His exact words from a sitting president were, quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will," end quote. This is a massive departure from yesterday's talk of bridges and power plants. He followed this up with a phone interview on Fox News with Bret Baier, where he was asked point blank what the odds were of a last-minute deal. He refused to give odds, but repeatedly stated 8 p.m. is happening. He described the coming attack as something the world, quote, has not seen, and paired this with a call for complete and total regime change in Tehran. We are no longer talking about a surgical strike to reopen a shipping lane. The president is now using language that suggests a total war of annihilation. This has triggered an immediate response from the UN, which is warning that targeting civilian infrastructure on this scale constitutes a war crime. This means the exit ramp for this conflict has essentially vanished. We are now looking at a 12-hour window where the only two options left on the table are a total Iranian surrender or a strike that could permanently rewrite the map of the Middle East. As the clock ticks towards 8 p.m., there is a hollow, heavy silence that falls over those of us who are covering this story. It is the kind of hush that only happens when the rhetoric of diplomacy is replaced by the mechanics of destruction. We are no longer debating policy. We are watching the deliberate preparation for a humanitarian catastrophe. Allow me to speak plainly with you for a moment. War is an ancient evil, but the specific brand of escalation we are seeing from this administration is a new kind of modern nightmare. When a leader begins to speak of whole civilizations dying as if it were a tactical footnote, we've moved past the realm of national security and into the realm of a moral vacuum. There is a profound sense of disgust among both the international press and humanitarian observers this morning, not just at the potential for missed targets, but at the explicit stated intent to dismantle the civilian infrastructure of a nation of 88 million people. We are talking about the potential for millions of families to lose power, water, and the literal bridges that connect their lives, all under the shadow of a leadership that appears increasingly untethered from the human cost of its commands. Tonight, the world isn't just watching a deadline. It is watching to see if the guardrails of our civilization still hold, or if we're about to witness a loss of life that will stain our collective conscience for generations. I'm JJ Hastings. I will be right here, and I will keep the camera on. And from now, from my home to yours, wherever you're watching, stay safe and stay informed. I'll see you in the next one.